I'm going to tell you a story first. It's actually there's a reason why I'm telling the story. There's a famous music band in the United States in 1980s called Van Helsing. Extremely popular. Their shows, the music concerts used to be very packed. Thousands of people used to come, many times teenagers, boys and girls. The shows used to be booked a lot before. The show was so popular, people used to buy tickets even from the third parties, and the prices used to be jacked up. On the day of the show, the dais on which the musicians used to play was around 10 feet. They used to use almost 20,000 decibel level of sound. They used to have additional electricity connection. It's almost like 100 houses equivalent electricity. But the funny thing was, they used to have a contract which they used to make the local organizers sign before they get the contract to organize the concert. But the funny thing in that was the contract used to be almost 100 pages. Just for comparison, typical contract by any other music band used to be 5 or 6 pages, but these guys used to make it 100 pages. And there used to be so many clauses in the contract. For example, they used to have very funny clauses in that also. If the concert is on a Tuesday, for lunch we want broccoli and beef, but no green beans. And if the concert happens to be a Thursday, Friday and Sunday, we don't want spinach. That used to be the amount of details that used to be in the contract. But the most interesting and the weirdest clause was, they said, we want a bowl full of M&Ms, no M&Ms, but no brown M&Ms. People thought, you must be really crazy. What's the difference between brown and the non-brown M&Ms? And first of all, 100-page contract, are you kidding me? But organizers used to go for those because they were very popular. People used to compare him with the band with Steve Jobs, because Steve Jobs also, history actually shows Steve Jobs has a different personality, to put it politely. So after a few years passed, media wanted to interview these guys because these guys got retired, and they were asking, what was the reason why you had that clause, even the brown M&M clause? Were you so arrogant to put the clause? He said, no, there was no arrogance in that. There was extremely intelligent reason we have put the clause, and there is that it's a really, really good idea. I said, what is the idea? He said, tell the idea after the presentation is over, before the pizza is delivered, so that you will still keep paying attention to what I'm talking. After my presentation is done, if you still want to know the answer, I will. And I'm not tricking. This is actually a fantastic reason for him or the band putting no brown M&Ms. Only thing is, I will not tell it now, because let me first talk to the presentation. AI is everywhere. I'm sure you would have heard of this. It's even impacting the economies of the world. I think if you add AI into an economy of a country, many times the economies are getting doubled. So it's having a tremendous impact. Have you heard of Gartner's hype cycle? They publish every year for the last so many years. They publish hype cycles for different types of technologies. Emerging technologies is one such hype cycle. I did a research, I published a blog a year ago. I collected all the hype cycles for the last 16 years, from 2001 to 2017. And I analyzed the hype cycles between 2001 and 10, and then compared the reality in the 2015 and 16 and 17 just to make sure, are those hype cycles predicting accurately? But they are indeed. You should go back and check too. I think if you go give a search on hype cycles, you'll find out, and then you can verify whether it's true or not. And talking about predictions, do you want another story? Yeah. Normally, see, I'm from India, and normally yes for us is this, no is this, and no answer is still a yes answer. But I'll ask the question again. Do you want another story? Yes. Okay. This is about predictions. How important good is predictions? There's a very popular professor by name Professor Philip Tetlock. He taught in University of California, Berkeley for a while, and then he's currently teaching in Wharton University in the United States. He wanted to find out all these so-called smart people who make predictions, how good are these predictions? Because someone has to go back and verify the predictions. So he did research for 20 years, 1983 to 2000, published a book. Actually, the book is available too. You can go buy the book. He tracked 284 experts, and these experts are people who are so expert that they actually come on the televisions and the radios and make predictions, and people actually seek out them to ask their opinions. And they made around 28,000 predictions over a period of time, for over a period of 20 years. And he actually went back and verified each of those predictions. So his summary opinion was, the more expert you are, the lesser accurate your predictions are. Having said that, my prediction about AI, if you look into, similar to what even Gartner is saying, if you look at the peak there, Joe, we have any laser pointer? It's okay. At the top, you see machine learning and deep learning. It's really in the peak. I think it's really making a dramatic impact. And on the side, actually, I added another picture mapping the hype cycle to the chasm, crossing the chasm. Have you heard of Crossing the Chasm? Written 30 years ago, not recently. 30 years ago, Jeffrey Moore wrote a book where he talked about innovators invent something for the fun of it, not for the money, for anything, just for the fun of it. But the early adopters, if you belong to any of those early adopting companies, they want to adopt the technology, tool, technique, whatever it is. And there are obstacles, that's why it's a chasm. And there is a tremendous amount of chasm, and I could explain what the chasm is in terms of how you can see the chasm. But there is a chasm, and if you are an early adopter company, you should think about how to really adopt it and what are the obstacles. I will talk about some of the obstacles in my presentation today. But before I even talk about that, let's play a little bit of a game. And I firmly believe that you're all smart people, right? Not a trick question, seriously. You believe you are smart people? Yeah? Okay, I know you're being too polite, not nodding the head either way. I think you're smart people. Let's play the game of predicting what's going to happen in the future. And let's say this is 1995. Today is 1995, not 2018, okay? And I want you to predict what happened in 2010, 15 years from today. Okay? Normally as a presenter, when I ask any questions, I'd really appreciate if you can give me a little bit of a smile, because I don't know what's happening in your minds. Unless I'm really, really off the mark, there are only two reasons why there's no response from you. One is I was so brilliant, you're just awe. Or second is I'm not making any sense. Anyway, so this is 1995, and I'm asking you to predict about 2010, what would have happened. And I'm actually going to explain two different products, comparable, similar products, but products done by two different companies. And I would ask you which product would be super successful in 15 years, that's 2010. And you already know what happened. So you can see how predicting the future is going to be almost impossible. And I was thinking about what would be the good idea. Then I thought, okay, we are Microsoft in the Microsoft provided campus. So why don't we pick an example from Microsoft? Okay, in 1995, Bill Gates announced they're going to create an encyclopedia. He said, we are going to put our credibility and lots of money to create Encarta, MSN Encarta. They hired professional writers, intelligent and domain intelligent people. They were paid a lot of money. Microsoft program managers were assigned this responsibility of creating MSN Encarta. There was money to be made, and hence, as a profitable company like Microsoft is, they would definitely put the best foot, make sure all the marketing and other trick is done. It was supposed to be made as a CD, so you actually can make links. Plus, like compared to a book, this will have pictures and images and movies and stuff too. So it was fantastic proposition or a product. A few years later, a completely non-profit company, unknown company, said we are going to do a similar encyclopedia. Anyone can write whatever they want to. No money will be paid to you guys. You will be writing part of the encyclopedia on your time. There are no project managers. No one is going to supervise whether you're doing a fantastic job or not. There is no profit to be expected, and hence the logic of profit being the motivation for a public company or a for-profit company was not there. And which company I'm talking about? Wikipedia. So 1995, today is 1995, and I'm asking you which company or which product is going to be super successful in 15 years. In 2009, Bill Gates announced that, okay, we're going to stop Encarta. The traditional logic that is being applied in not just business models, but also in product development is changing tremendously because of AI. I've been doing AI for the last 4 or 5 years. I've done a couple of startups. I've been working in a couple of big companies. I may be biased when I say that AI is going to be there in every aspect of life. And if I'm also allowed to say that if in your company, the fact that you're sitting here today, I'm sure you're interested in AI, you know something about AI, you really want to learn about AI, I completely get that, and hence you're not affected by this statement. But in your company, if there are people who are doing finance, HR, engineering, executives, any type of role, you're a doctor, a lawyer, anything. If you don't know what AI is, or if you've not understood what AI is, how to work with AI, there's every chance that within 3 years, someone else is going to get your job. That's the amount of action that's happening in AI. This is a couple of reports from McKinsey in terms of which are the leading sectors about which companies can actually take forward. By the way, someone told me when you're making a presentation, have simple information on your slide, because you can't have too much of things on the slide, because it's against the very principles of presentations. But I'm actually, in every of my slides, there's lots and lots of text. And the reason for that is it's a good idea once in a while you can lift your hand up and go and take a picture. It'll give you some physical exercise too. And there are links provided at the bottom of each slide on where I've got the information from, so you can even get more information if you want. AI is no different from the digital transformation activities what companies does, or any org change that happens. And if you have done digital transformation activities in your company, AI transformation is almost the same. And when I interact with companies and I speak in conferences and meetups, people ask me, especially executives in their companies, like, how do I do? What do I do? And the rest of my slides, I'll be actually answering those questions in terms of what is that organizations need to do to adopt AI. And if you are a developer, an individual contributor, you need to also be aware of what are the things organizations go through when they do a org transformation in AI. If you're a mid-level manager, you've got to be aware of that. I'll try to answer some of those myths about AI. One of the most prominent myths is about, am I going to lose my job, especially middle management black hole is a term I think people use all the time. And also, if you're an executive in the organization, you've got to be aware of what is that you've got to be doing to make change happen. But the first thing you've got to ask is why. By the way, as I said, I think I'll have lots of information on the slides, because I do have a few ideas which I want to share, and I have tried to put it as short as possible because I can't write long sentences in a slide. But each of the bullet, if you want to pick any specific bullet, I'll be able to explain that. But you've got to know why you want to do AI in your organization. There has to be a prime motivator for you, not just because your competition is doing it, or because everyone is talking about it, or China is investing 30 times more money in AI compared to the United States, or not because just in World Economic Forum in Davos they spoke about AI. No, that's not the reason, but you've got to have a solid fundamental reason why you want to, and this is some research on the side on what seems to be the opinion of people why they want to do. You have to do a similar thing. And of course, every change management is difficult. Nothing is easy. If it's easy, then you wouldn't have come here all the way, and H2O wouldn't have spent so much money to do a meetup, and I wouldn't have come all the way from Silicon Valley to talk about this. But one of the fundamental challenge I see is there's a chasm between ambition and awareness. Now, I think enough companies in Europe, I've also heard about AI. I'm from the United States. I've seen how companies and technology companies and non-technology companies in the US respond to AI, and I think they are really in the forefront. If you look at the whole world opinion about AI, US companies are really adopting well. Asian countries, especially I think China is really in an advanced stage. Asia is really catching up, but I see now in the last 6 to 8 months, I came 8 months ago once, and after that I came multiple times. Based on my discussions with some of the CEOs, I feel that there is a tremendous more awareness about AI, the need for AI, and of course GDPR is another one also which is really coming up fast, and companies are trying to adopt both GDPR and AI and trying to see how both can be complementary. But the chasm of what is that you want to accomplish as an ambition, and what is the awareness in sense, do you know what AI stands for? What are the pitfalls? Where do you get the talent from? What exactly can we do in the organization? What is the acceptance mindset of the people? I think that gap is huge. And here is a summary of what I normally ask all my people, all the people when I talk about in terms of the questions you need to ask if you really want to embark on the journey of AI. I have individual slides for each of that, but I try to combine slides. But again, today's session is in 40 minutes. I'll not be able to explain each and everything about what happens in organizations, but I just want to give you a holistic perspective of adopting AI. Is not an easy task, but it's an inevitable task. And at any point of time, if you have any questions, please go ahead and interrupt and ask me in a specific bullet. I'll be able to explain it more, because I know there's a diverse set of people in the audience today. Maybe let's take a poll. How many of you are hands-on individual contributor, techies, or geeks who relish in technology? Just raise your hands. One hand only. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Yeah. And how many of you are, if you call yourself as middle managers, where you have your team leads or you have a bunch of team, but you don't have the C title, but you're also given the responsibilities of executing things or changing things in the organization, and you have your boss, and sometimes your team members also act like your boss because they don't listen to you sometimes. Yeah. But how many of people are such? A few. Are there any executives who you call yourself VP, SVP, EVP, C? Okay. So I'll try to. Thanks. I'll try to customize it, I think, for the first two groups, lesser on the third group. For the first thing is, are you ready for AI? As I mentioned to you earlier, you want to adopt AI just because you've heard of. I think that need to be switched off. I think this otherwise it will start. I need to go back to my laptop all the time anyway. The AI readiness in terms of why exactly you want to do it, and are you ready for doing an AI? Do you think AI is like a technique or is actually going to impact the entire culture of the organization, or even has a strong impact? Are you committed? Do you know how to do it? This is some of the questions I think you want to ask. Why do you want to get to AI? Some of the reasons I think need to be documented, discussed, and even shared across the organization. I met with an organization in Sweden this week, and they really want to do AI, but it's only the CEO who's bought into that. The rest of the people maybe I think are scared, and hence they want to do AI. At least they're not saying a no for AI, but there's a tremendous gap in terms of what CEO wants versus what's the awareness of the rest of the team. An organization is geographically distributed, and hence it becomes a little more complicated. And if the company grew through acquisitions, it becomes even more difficult in terms of adopting AI. Yeah, so these are some of the AI-ready questions you're going to be asking yourself. And I talked about the awareness. I think there's a specific research I wanted to, it was really amazing. The research from MIT Sloan Management I picked up from. This talks about at what level people are aware of what it takes to do AI. Of course, there are some pioneering companies and investigators, experimenters. These are companies which want to adopt. Some companies are just experimenting. Maybe it's a new thing, which let me give it a try. I have a quotation from Jeff Bezos towards the end of my last slide. Every company, when they adopt a new technique, new technology, the most common thing, I think it's even taught in schools, is let's do a pilot, right? We always say, oh, let's do a pilot. And Jeff Bezos says we have hundreds or thousands of pilots, AI pilots going on in the company. In other words, what he's saying is no pilot, just do it. No, there's no need for experimentation because it's there. I think you just need to be aware of what it can do. It's no more questioning, can it do? It will, you just need to make it happen. By the way, my wife all the time tells me that you talk so fast, sometimes I can't even understand what you're saying. And what she doesn't know is that's by design. But here and today, I really want to talk. If I'm talking too fast, please let me know. I'll slow down. And I'm also trying to see if I can get over by earlier than what it is so that you can get your pizzas faster. AI, this is a report published by Stanford, I think. Is it Stanford? It's part of Stanford, I think, organization. Yeah, Stanford. This is a result about the report about how AI models are becoming better and better. There's one object detection, for example, if you look into this particular picture, it's called top 1 error and top 5 error of image processing models. For example, when you show, let's say, 100 pictures to an AI model, how many pictures does the model make a mistake? And that's called top 1 error. Top 1 error is if your first prediction of the picture, object, whatever it is, let's say cat or a dog, if you make a mistake, that's called top 1 error. Sometimes they give a little more leeway to the models, and it's called top 5 errors. That is, the first 5 predictions, if they are right, then the model is supposed to be right. Okay? But let's take the top 5 error, top 1 error. Humans' top 1 error is around 5 to 6%. In other words, if you're given thousands of pictures to see, for every 100 you will not be able to detect 5 or 6. Whereas the model's top 1 error is 3.6%. So model actually can predict a lot better than human beings. Now I thought for a while, what exactly that means? If there is a picture, there is a picture. I can see it what it is. What do you mean by I cannot understand a picture and the model can understand the picture better? Then someone explained it to me, then I did the following, and I would recommend you guys to do the same thing too. If you want to share any of your funny or naughty pictures with someone online, and you think you've blurred it enough and you've done some encryption or whatever stuff, and maybe a human being cannot understand what it is, a model can understand. So don't send your pictures online from now on, because there are AI models can figure out completely what you're doing. Yeah, so that's, but anyway, that story aside, models are becoming extremely intelligent. I do once in a while workshop on NLP, natural language processing, where I teach people how to design a language translation model, and normally it takes 60 hours to compile on a desktop, but I give the pre-trained model. It just takes only 5 minutes after that. There are models which can understand so well what you're talking or what you're typing. It's even better than sometimes a human being, in the sense it can translate so well. And maybe I think there's a blog on my LinkedIn where you can go read how I designed a machine learning translation model from Vietnamese to English, and it actually does a fantastic job. But don't ask me why I picked up Vietnamese, but I just picked up Vietnamese. Of all the activities, of all the components that are involved in AI project or AI initiative, data is one topic which comes up all the time, and data is one thing which every organization has to understand better, and data is one thing which every organization makes a mistake about. And if you look at the number of bullets I have, there's so many, and I have another slide also to talk about data. Data availability is so important, primary, but data is not available in organizations, and if it's available too, it's not complete, it's sparse, it's erroneous, distributed, so many different problems. And if you're doing only just machine learning as opposed to deep learning, and you got to do feature engineering, so that means you got to be expert enough to even figure out what data you have and you don't have, what need to be acquired. Can we start collecting now? Can we buy it from third party? Can we just do a cold start, which is if you don't have the data, can we just start it from zero? Those are some of the questions you need to answer if it's just a machine learning. Of course, for deep learning, sometimes you can throw all the data, whatever you have, to the model, and the model will figure out. But for machine learning, you got to do the feature engineering yourself. These are the other questions I said in terms of planning, capability, and help, change management. By the way, we are also a consulting organization. I'll sneak that too. Get some external help. It's a good idea to get external help. There is a data point. There are only 50,000 machine learning experts in the whole world, and 90% of them are working with those 6, 7, 8 companies in the world. A couple of Chinese companies and rest American companies, and the rest 10% are working in startups and stuff. So if you really want to hire, I saw the picture I think from Microsoft. Yeah, everyone is hiring. If you look into LinkedIn, some of the managers, senior managers, directors, VPs, SVPs, all of them actually have put the permanent caption in their LinkedIn profile that okay, we are hiring, because yes, everyone is hiring, but it's people are not available. Any questions till now? Okay. It's pizza, I think. This is if you've not heard of Kaggle, it's a good idea to find out what Kaggle is, but Kaggle has done a survey on what's the biggest obstacle for AI. One of the biggest problems in AI activities. Dirty data is one of the first things people are talking about. Organizations don't have the data, or whatever data they have is actually erroneous. And of course, lack of data science talent is the second top. I think that's actually the most painful. Sometimes you can do some generation of data, like in machine learning or even deep learning too. There are techniques like even GANs people use to generate data. We can debate about whether how it's a good data or bad data if you use GANs, but you cannot solve data science talent. Even to the extent, I know it's being recorded, I'm going to say that anyway, some of the good universities, professors and faculty, teaching faculty are also quitting and joining full-time companies, full-time jobs in companies. There's a famous exit recently by a Stanford professor by name Fei Li. She's the head of the computer science and a very famous personality. She recently quit and then started working with Google. But she's not really completely quit. She actually still has association with Stanford University. But in my personal opinion, the faculty I think quits and goes and joins jobs, where are the new set of people coming in to join the workforce? But again, I'm not questioning her independent right to go join a company. So hopefully that's recorded, I think. This is a typical MBA. If you've done MBAs, you would have heard of this term called tipping point assessment. How far can you afford not to decide to do something and bear with the losses? For how long can you ignore something which you believe is making an impact on your competition, but you can ignore because it's not really hurting you? Because you're of course making a loss, revenue, margin, customers, happiness, whatever it is. But that tipping point assessment needs to be done for everyone, and even for you as an individual. How long can you delay learning machine learning yourself or deep learning yourself before it becomes too late for you? Sure, maybe you can wait for another 6 months or maybe another year, maybe another 2 years, I don't know. But I want you to, all of you guys do individually yourself, I think, tipping point assessment to see how much loss can you afford. And let's say if with all my discussion here, say, oh yes, we want to change, what are the top areas I can start focusing? The two top things can be, if you have a data intensive activities, which is being done by human beings, many times it's like not pure no brain activities, I'm talking about with brain activities, but huge data and paper intensive activities, like let's say you're processing loan applications or credit card transactions and credit card applications, patient records, any of those activities that will be the first starting point you can work on to adopt AI. And of course, automating some of the operations in the organization, fixing your passwords and unlocking your machines, and could be another set of activities. And of course, last, if you really want to go ahead, you can also look at some of the wider impactful activities too. And there's some research on the side if you want to take a look at that. And this is actually research from Deloitte. This is my golden checklist for every organization. I think I always share with. These are some of the questions you need to ask yourself. I'm going to actually pause for a few seconds, let you read this. I know this is not the good presentation style, but go ahead and read this, pick any bullet, and I'll explain that. My favorite are, you see this one, keep an eye on your TAE projects and Gorilla projects. I'll talk about those too if you want to. But any other bullets if you want to talk about, I think I'll be happy to. And there are a bunch of links I'm providing at the bottom if you can read further too. Yes, sir.
What do you mean by no need for experimentation?
If the technology is not proven, if the new idea is still not, you're not sure the idea is going to be successful for you. Some companies want to just play it on the side and pick the low-hanging fruit and do it. The capability of AI the tools and technology that enables AI, the success stories available in the industry of companies using AI are so many. If you want to adopt AI in an organization, you don't need to do any more experimentation. It's just you have to do it. No need for, oh, you think my recommendation model, which I've been using the gut feeling of my marketing people, would that work, or should I just use AI? People say, oh, let's try an AI model and also cross-verify with the help of the marketing people. In my opinion, you don't need to do that, because AI would definitely have a better result for that. Actually, I would even claim that if any of you guys have been doing big data analytics, for the same problem statement and for the same data set, I have documentary evidence to prove that AI would give you a better results, if not more accuracy, more refined accuracy, more precise recommendations compared to big data, even though big data has been tremendously helpful for organizations. That's what I said, no need for experimentation anymore, just have to do AI. Yes, sir.
Customer education, I think you mentioned a couple of points that you need to
Yeah.
just highlight.
In certain regulated industries, if customers come to know that you have been using AI to make some judgments, you may get into a legal soup. And the most easy thing to think about is in healthcare. For example, you go to a doctor, and doctor is actually in the current day legal system, a doctor is the one who actually can make a judgment about your health and actually can prescribe something. But there are lots of AI models which do a better job than a doctor. I actually have, someone actually did a research and published a paper on that. In one research, they got 17 radiologists, look at 100 different scans of patients. I think it was a cancer scan. Each of the radiologists was given the same 100 and asked to predict whether this tumor is cancerous or not. And then it was also given to the model to predict whether this is cancerous or not. And without comparing the results, those patients went ahead with their regular tests, and they eventually came to know that they had cancer or not. So now you know the ground truth, you know what the predictions of the radiologists were, and you also know the prediction of the model. In all of the predictions made, model was consistently better than the radiologist. That's one example, and there are so many other examples too. I have a slide, not today, but the chest X-ray, even if you have a very fine grain break in your rib bones, the model can pick that you actually have a hairline fracture than just the X-ray or the radiologist looking at the X-ray. And I have other examples too. I work with another company in Berkeley where they are taking for an Alzheimer's patient situations. Alzheimer's patients don't actually have a lot of physical strength, and when they are sitting down on a chair or sitting on a bed or lying down on a bed, sometimes they move slowly anyway, but there is a distinct difference between sitting on their own intention versus falling down onto the chair or falling down onto the bed. And only a trained eye, like a nurse or a doctor, only can figure it out. And if that happens, if the patient is falling onto the bed, he or she needs medical attention immediately. And obviously, you can't have doctors all the time watching. So they're designing a video-based model which actually is monitoring the patients. And then if the patient falls down, for a naked eye, like if you guys are non-doctors, you will not be able to know the difference of a patient, an Alzheimer's patient slowly sitting on the chair versus slowly falling onto the chair, and the model can figure out and then immediately alert. In any of those situations, you don't want the patients to believe that, okay, the model has taken over their care, and it's not the doctor which is giving the care or the insurance company is giving the care, but it's the model is giving the care. And legally, I think we don't have it, like similar to autonomous cars. California will be the first, I think, in the whole world, I'm guessing, where I think from 1st of April, it's completely legal to have an autonomous car running on California streets, even though there's a lot of experimentation till now going on, and I've seen lots of cars myself, driverless cars going on. But from 1st of April, you can legally apply for a license. Of course, now there are so many other ethical, moral questions coming in. But that's the meaning of it. When you say you got to tell the patients, you got to tell your customers, you got to tell your recipients of the information that if a model is actually involved in making a decision, you got to make sure you reveal or share the information. It's also what GDPR says too, to a great extent. Yeah. Yes, sir.
What do you think about the sales and marketing of AI products? I mean, you mentioned customer education, but how does the sales and marketing of products that use AI have to change as part of the customer education? I mean, today you just spread a couple of buzzwords like machine learning, AI to promote the product with AI, but do you think the sales force need to change to sell these products, or do you think it's automatic almost?
Right now, I think it's more of a buzzword because you can actually immediately get more market credibility by using the buzzwords. Oh, we have an AI in that. But eventually, the products have to speak for themselves. When you have an AI-enabled capability in the product, and if it's working fine, better than the other one, and then you will get a slow response from the customers, but you will get the response from the customers. Till then, I think, like any technology, when people started using digital technologies or any technology, the microchips being used in products 20 years ago, you would announce, no one from Intel, right? So Intel inside, you actually make an announcement, just that brings credibility. But eventually your laptop has to work better. What's the use of saying Intel inside, but the laptop sucks? So in my opinion, if your question is more of, okay, would the sales of the product itself go by making an announcement that you have an AI in that, or you got to actually have better product performance? Yes, I think the product has to perform better. If you look into example of Amazon Go, where they've implemented only in the campus in Seattle, where you don't actually have to pay, you don't have to go to the cashier counter when you pick up things from the store, you can just walk out. But because they're so sure, model will never miss anything. But how do you know the model is working fine? The day when they announce, okay, we're going to implement across the entire country, then you know the model is working fine. Then there's no marketing required. But right now the marketing is required. I'm sure Jeff Bezos has to stand in front of a bunch of analysts every quarter saying, oh, we have that going on. Maybe the market price will go up a little bit just because they're giving one example. But you don't know how many mistakes are being committed yet because there's no public review of that. But yeah, in other words, I think products have to really... See, AI is... Maybe you all know this already, but I believe AI is doing the same thing what maybe some other technologies have been doing to make your product sell. It's going to just make its accuracy is so better by using that, the overall performance of your product is going to go up. So yeah, right now it's a buzzword, but eventually you got to improve it. And if your competition is doing it, you got to do it too, but there's no other choice. Anyway.
Hi, yeah. What do you think so far has stopped the kind of stopped AI becoming open source like a lot of other technologies have? So we've seen, for example, we have online machine learning libraries, but we don't have anything which really kind of like open sources and democratizes AI resources, as we have for several other different forms of software and technology. What will help us get there, and what do you think the impact will be?
I thought AI is one of course, a lot of other things also have started seeing open sourcing, but I think AI has tremendous amount of open sourcing. Actually, what I tell many companies who want to adopt AI is you don't need to create any new AI model. If you have the data, someone has already written a model for that. Just go to GitHub and download. If you go to my GitHub account, for sentiment analysis, I have written 2 different models. One for a small data set of 10,000 tweets, and if you have 1.4 million tweets, I have a different model. That's only 400 lines of code, and the first one is 23 lines of code. 23 lines of code, you can do a sentiment analysis of 10,000 tweets. And you don't have, as I said, you can just go to GitHub and get everything. So I think, contrary to what you're saying, everything is open sourced. Whether it's a frameworks, a few companies like H2O, of course, is a paid service, but there's a lot of other frameworks which are completely free. And I personally prefer TensorFlow. Sorry, Joe, but and it has so much of capabilities. It's completely free. It's even available for mobile devices now.
So my question wasn't specific enough. I think that like a lot of tools like the ones you're describing have been set up to solve specific problems, like in your case, analyze tweets, where you don't yet have that generality of AI, which can be, for example, one solution across many different organizations. But yeah, I'd take your point that
sure. Yeah, the general. Maybe I think we should take offline because I don't understand the generality part of it too. Maybe that's not you, but that's me. Yeah, I have a couple of other slides too. I have quite a
Probably extending the same thing in terms of open source and probably applies elsewhere. For an enterprise, let's say you want to take them on an AI journey, what sort of approach would you, is it open source, is it something else? How would you go about doing that?
If you're talking about adopting tools for an enterprise trying to adopt AI, I would recommend just go with the open source tools. And I know total cost of ownership is a different term, I think the way you look at, but if it's Caffe2, PyTorch, TensorFlow, the capability wise, the community to help you answer and fix any bugs you have, even the eagerness with which these companies which are producing these frameworks to solve and add more APIs, so that you are getting a full-fledged product for no cost. And I'm almost sure that these products will continue in the maturity cycle, because I think Caffe2 will be, maybe there'll be Caffe3 coming up, maybe the PyTorch 2 may come up too. TensorFlow is already, see, I started working on TensorFlow strongly, I think sometime in July, August of last year, 2017. That was, the version was beta version, 0.8 version. Then 0.9, 10, 11, 12, then 1.0 came in. 1.0, the first official version, came in Feb of this year. 2017, not this year, 2018. I'm just forgetting. So in just 1 year ago, and now it's already 1.5 or 1.6, and things are constantly evolving. So I would say if you're talking about only the tools adoption, companies just go with open source.
Thank you.
Yeah. Gentleman here. And I'll after that question, and then I'll go with the rest of the slides, and then we'll have any questions. I think we can.
Hi, the real issue I find is with explanation of the output, particularly when it comes to classification algorithms. You know, if it's detecting a cat, you know if it looks like a cat or not. But when it's sort of beyond binary classification algorithms, saying why has it made a decision in terms of buy-in. I mean, I've had a look at things like Lime. That's the only thing I've found that starts to do that, but even that's quite rudimentary. And it's really frustrating when you have something that you think has made a good decision, but if you need to then go to a client and they say, well, why has it done that? Mm-hmm. And you give them a blank look.
I don't know if you can go back and analyze each and every decision of a model, because a model is actually looking at huge amount of data and making a decision per se, and that's the reason why you have a model and not human beings to make a decision. But if let's say you're developing the model and then you want to sure, are you sure my model is doing a good job? So as developers, what we do is we give extremely limited amount of data as inference to see if it's doing a good job. Let's say maybe 100 data points, maybe 200 data points, and then see the model is doing fine. And then we humanly verify whether it's doing a good job. If I understood the question correctly, if I don't, at least right now, I'm not looking at, I've not heard enough from in my circles that, oh, we want the model to tell us also why it made a decision. But having said that, there are a bunch of amusing stories about why the model made a mistake, and then people did not know, and then eventually they realized. For example, there was a job recommendation model portal in US. It, of course, makes a recommendation, like a LinkedIn. When you log in, it will tell you, oh, we found an interesting job for you. But this one is not about LinkedIn, by the way. This job recommendation portal was recommending, for some strange reason, CEO positions only to men, even though, according to the qualifications, there were women and men both qualified available, but the model was only recommending to men. And as a developer, I understand. As an ML engineer, immediately my brain started thinking, oh, I know exactly why that's happening. Because of the past data, you're giving so much of data. But no one ever thought of making the data gender neutral, because it's been happening in the past doesn't mean that it should happen going forward, because times are changing. So those are situations like even the Tay projects and the Gorilla projects, you can read more about that, but those are some immediately visible projects which went wrong, and hence people immediately pointed out and we corrected it. But I haven't seen research enough where companies are making efforts to find out why the model is making a decision ABC. Yeah, but I have a few more comments on that, but we can talk offline.
Thank you, SK, for a wonderful talk. Do you want?
I have 2 more slides if you don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, it's 7:30. Other side. Anyway, everyone says AI is the new electricity and AI is the new fire. I want to say something different. You know, in 1830 was the first time a patent was issued for lawnmowers, and I know that lawnmower may be the only reason which has triggered for the $620 billion sports industry. And I think AI is going to be the new lawnmower, not the electricity. I think you should say next time AI is a new lawnmower, because every industry in the next 10 years or 5 years is going to be tremendously impacted. And I want to add AI to this too. Okay, many of you may have questions. These are difficult questions and these are controversial questions too. I have an opinion, and because it's being recorded, and also there's a lot of people in the audience, and I'm scared for my life. So any of these questions, if you have, come and talk to me offline. I'll tell you my opinion about what's the right thing to do for any of those situations. And there's one interesting one: can I get resources for free? That's not a trick question. Yes, I know one way of getting resources for free, but I can talk online. And if you have any questions later on, not today, because pizza is bothered, you can send an email on my LinkedIn, and then I can answer the questions. Okay, that's it. Thank you, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah.